And this is the most important thing before you watch any of this. You need to learn what a sharp chain is. You need to learn how to sharpen, whether it's with a grinder or a file. I don't really care how you do it, but when you set that bar into the wood, if it's not trying to pull you through it, your chain's dull, and a ported saw's not going to do a damn thing for you. Hey guys, how's everyone doing? Hope everybody's doing okay. Welcome to any new subscribers. The Husqvarna 288, we traded around, got this from Simple Man's brother Calvin, done a little work for him. He gave us this saw. That's kind of how I like to do this. Not really a fan of taking money for it, just, you know, we like just to trade around, help people out when we can. But not what this is about. I was talking to Simple Man the other night, and he said, you know, I'm waiting on you to do another bad Husqvarna. I said, well, we may come up with something the next day or two, so I figured why not do this saw. It needs a good cleaning up anyway. I guess this is a kind of how to port your saw video, or how I'd go about doing it, and we're gonna kind of turn this one up kind of hot. We'll have to see where the timing numbers are at on it first. It still has decent compression, and I'm sure it's never been apart. It's got around 165 psi. You know, that's pretty good. If we can do a little port work on it and a base gasket delete, and I'm not really thinking we'll gain any compression, but you never know, it's possible. This all depends on how far I move the exhaust timing and take that in mind. You know, the higher you raise that exhaust roof, the more you're taking away from your static compression, you know. Every saw's different. You have dwell time you have to look at. You know, some saws will lose a lot by moving 2 or 3 degrees. Some you can move 5 degrees and they don't lose 5 psi. Just all depends on your piston to rod ratio, and you know, there's a lot of scientific crap goes into it, but I don't like getting into that stuff. I just like kind of leaving it simple, because you know, not everybody's real mechanically inclined, and I understand that, but you know, I've done mechanic work most of my life, probably since the mid-90s. That's when I started, you know, I started working on small engines. Was around, I'm wanting to say 93 or well, maybe 94 or 95 or so. And then got into automobiles just a year after that. So, you know, we've turned a lot of dang wrenches since then. And, you know, I started porting stuff around 99 or 2000, you know. Not everything I do is perfect, but, you know, it's not the worst work either. My motto here is, you know, I try to make things a little better than they were before I got it, you know. I'm not going to lie and say every saw I do is perfect, every saw I turn out is perfect, you know, but they're a lot better off than they were when we got them, you know. A lot of what I get here is junk, and, you know, if we can get it running and get it to cut a little better than a stock saw, you know, that's just kind of what I shoot for here, and, you know, I don't lose a lot of sleep over if something ain't, you know, running on the ragged edge and, you know, running on death's door. But here lately, you know, I'm going to start turning little saws up to where they're, in my opinion, just not going to be reliable and not last long. But who knows, you know, they may fool me. The little 10-10 we done, I don't know how long that thing's going to last, and, you know, I hope the title didn't aggravate anyone. I'm sure there's a 10-10 out there that'll eat that thing alive, but, you know, it was all in fun and all in a laugh. But I've been told by more than one person that they've never seen a 54cc saw that's stout, and, you know, I'm not the kind of person to blow my own whistle, but really, honestly, I've not either, and I've seen a lot of them run, and I've run a lot of them, so, you know, it is what it is. But I've got video of this saw running. You're welcome to find it in my playlist and go watch it. What we're going to do, we're going to get it over on the bench and start tearing it down. As far as I know, the saw doesn't need anything. I've cut with it and got it hot. Doesn't seem to have any air leaks. Carb seems to be fine. Everything tunes out fine. So I think we're safe to go into it and do a little bit of port work on it. So I guess the next thing you guys will see is it sitting on the bench, and we'll see if we can get some of the covers off of it and get into this thing and see what makes it tick. Alright guys, what I've done is went ahead and pulled the saw down to here. These saws are super simple to work on. Anyone can pull it down to here if you have any mechanical inclination at all. If you can't get it down to here, I'm not going to be mean by saying this, but you probably don't have any business taking a die grinder, Dremel, or whatever you're using to the cylinder, because you probably just wrecked the saw. But anyway, these are super simple to take apart. That's why a lot of people love them. This is something I feel you should do before you check any timing numbers. This one wasn't really bad. Had very little carbon buildup on it. Stuff you some rags down in the crankcase and just take you some fine sandpaper, some degreaser, or whatever you've got. Just clean the top of that piston up. Then go in. You're not going to be able to get the squish band perfect, although I do before I put it back together. In a lot of cases, I'll actually go in and polish the combustion chamber. It just depends on how far I'm going. We may do that on this one just to show it on camera, but I try to get all of that as clean and as much of the carbon off as possible. Of course, there's not going to be any carbon on the intake port. If there is, you have problems, and we got lucky, and the OEM gaskets just came right off of this and looked awesome. No big deal, we would have just bought some if they hadn't. But back to what I'm getting at, this exhaust port did have quite a bit of carbon build up in it. You know, you're going to find that's normal, probably 20 thousandths or more. And the reason you want to go in and clean the carbon out of everything and off of your piston is it can and will throw your timing numbers off. If you're not doing this stuff and you're checking timing numbers, you know, in my opinion, you're kind of just wasting your time. Why not just go ahead and take the extra half an hour, pull the cylinder, get you some sandpaper, some degreaser, and just clean that stuff up. This cylinder's in immaculate condition. I kind of expected it. Compression was still great on it. Saw pulled like a freight train. I can see lots of room for improvement on this saw. Those transfer ports will just not work for me. We're going to have to go in and do a massive makeover to those, and I'm kind of on the fence and debating on throwing some boost ports into each side of it as well. Just depends on how far we go with this. I'm going to try to, you know, knock it out over the course of the next night or two, and then hopefully when we're done, you know, got some parts for some of our other saws, and it does look like we have a fin missing, but you know, that's no big deal. Yeah, we're going to try to make us a ripper out of this. I guess the next thing we're going to get into is going to throw a couple bolts back in the cylinder, put it on, figure out what we've got for squish. And this is a single ring piston, but it uses a thick ring. That's a little trick, you know, if you get an aftermarket piston for your later model saw and it has two big thick rings, just leave that bottom ring out. It'll do just fine, less parasitic drag. It'll rev easier and quicker. Kind of a trick I do on some saws anyway, but just to try to squeeze a little more out of them. But let me get this bolted back on. I don't know what I'll get done tonight, but we'll get the degree wheel set up. It's going to be a super long video, but I hate series. Why not just throw it together in one long video and you know, see what we come up with on this thing. Alright, most people have seen this 10,000 times already, but you know, we're safe to check our squish now. Carbon's cleaned out everywhere. It's 50 thousandths. You know, if you've got one that's really, really tight, you might want to step down to say 30 thousandths solder. You can get a false reading with thicker solder, but we should be alright here. As tight as that feels, I'm going to see this thing somewhere around 30 thousandths. Once you've done so many of them, you kind of know, and they're like, huh, yeah, this one's going to be a ripper. So hopefully we can gain some compression here. These old cheap calipers, you know, they're not the most accurate thing in the world. You pick these up at good old Harbor Freight. You're looking at, you know, if it depends on if they're on sale or not or whatever. You know, you're looking at 10, 15 bucks or something. I think I actually paid $8 for these on one of those sidewalk sales, but I don't know how well that camera will pick up. I'm going to quit running my mouth and measure this. I can tell it's going to be tight. What I'll do is I'll measure this in a couple other places. Really, really pleased with that. This saw's going to be a ripper. That's not even down near the end of the squish band. It gets tighter as we get near the end. Alright guys, this is a very important part. I'm not going to show you how to set your wheel up. There's a lot of good videos on it. Just find one where somebody is using a piston stop and actually balancing out the wheel. If you get it within half a degree or a degree, don't lose any sleep over it. These things can get very aggravating if you're just starting out. Unless I move my piston stop here, we're on about 85 there. Back around to the other side, around 85. I'm looking to my left of that stop. I know the camera angle, you know, it could throw things off. It is what it is. No big deal. You guys get the point. You need to balance that wheel. Alright guys, we're about to check the exhaust port time on. I know a lot of you guys are a fan of the ray of light method. Nothing wrong with it, but I'm going to show you here that the way I do it gets the same result. I guess it depends on how your eyes work and how they see, but I get the same result. Got our flashlight shine down in here into the port, rotating in the direction the saw runs. As you can see, we're open, closed. Airflow is going to start somewhere right there, and I'm going to bring the light back over on you guys. And this thing's opening, 100 degrees, 101. Yeah, I'm seeing 101 degrees or so. What I'm going to do next is show you that the way I do it gets about the same exact result, and it makes things more consistent and a little faster, but you still need to double and triple check your numbers no matter how you do it. Guys, we're back to TDC, and what I've had to do is cut the lights off, which it looks like the camera's still picking up a little mark on her handlebar, halfway decent, and I'm reading to the left of that. My left sitting here behind the camera, I guess. If it don't look exact to what I'm saying, it's either just the angle I'm looking at it, or, you know, just camera angle trickery, I guess. But you guys get the idea that I'm right in that general area. And from what I found, this wire, you can see it's really thin. I've got a hook in it. This is just dead accurate to my, I don't know how it will be to you, but I would think it would be the same, to my ray of light and eyeballing the intake port, and let's just face it, if you're looking through the exhaust port trying to see when transfers are opening, there's no way you're getting that accurate anyway. You're probably better off to put a ring inside of there or something, and then you're probably just gonna bump that ring when you're coming up and move it enough to change it a degree. So I found this works really well when I go back, when I put a ring up in there and check to make my marks to port width. I'm usually right within what I'm getting here, so may help someone, may not, to each their own. Some people are gonna say that's crazy, or ray light's the only way to do it, but there's more than one way to skin a cat. You can use solder, whatever you want, but solder, I've found meshes and the wire seems to work better, and I hope my arm's not getting in the way of the camera. What I'm going to do is insert this into the center of that port, into the highest part of the port. This thing does have an oval shape, and unless I just move the saw and everything, you should be seeing right around the same thing we seen with the ray of light. There's 1 time, 2, 3. Alright, so what we're going to do next is check the transfer ports. Honestly, I've done it off camera, and we probably will move them a little bit. I'm not a really big fan of the long blowdown on the saw, but this one's not bad. Seems there's a lot of misconception out there about transfer timing and blowdown, but again, whatever, to each their own. More iron feels good, we'll just say that. What I've done is I've took the hook that I had on the end of that wire, and if you'll count from 90, the next number will be 100, then 110, then 120, and they're opening, if you look at the left side of that line, they're opening just before 125. We'll call it 125, close enough. So, okay, and again, I've checked off camera because I'm having to kind of watch things as I do it through the monitor here. This thing has really, really good timing just all around. It's no dang wonder it runs so good. Some of the best port timing I've ever seen on a stock saw. What I've got is I've got that piece of wire in there, and I have checked that by just my bare eye. And, with the wire, get the same exact number. Like I said, may work for you, may not, but I don't know really why it wouldn't. And we've got an intake opening of around 72 degrees. Alright, so our game plan, what we're going to do, what I've done right now, the only 2 ports I plan on doing any real grinding on, and the only thing I'll actually use an actual cutter on is the upper transfers. We're going to change the intake timing. This thing, we have a big funny looking square rectangle looking intake port. Not a lot you can do with it. It's just made weird. We can do a little with it, but we'll change the timing on it. Like to see somewhere between 150 and 155 duration on that. Transfer ports, I've got a ring in there. I've got it pushed up right around 120. We're going to pull that off, make us a mark, the Sharpie, grind till that mark disappears, and recheck, and hopefully we're about right where we want to be on that. And as far as the exhaust port, very minimal work. I'd like to see it opening. I'd like to see it crack dead on 100 degrees or so. We'll go in with the cartridge roll on that, widen it a little. The shape of it's pretty dang good anyway. Clean things up, lay a really, really nice polish on it, and just that little bit of work should put us in the ballpark where we want to be. Really, I should probably just go in, widen it, and polish it, but it's pretty clean anyway. But we'll work on it a little bit just for sake of trying to make the saw run really well. and then we'll go in, and mainly a lot of the work we're going to do here, as usual, is going to be to the lower transfers. Transfers seem to be where it's at on about everything. You know, if you're not changing your transfer timing, you're leaving a lot on the table. You don't need a fancy rod angle to do it. I've shown in other older videos, you know, you can use the little round grinding stones that you get for your Dremel, or you can buy a set at Harbor Freight or any other tool store of these little round diamond cutters. They're flat. I used those for years. You can go in and make a transfer look pretty dang nice with them. You know, you're not going to get in every corner, but you know, you can change your timing and leave a pretty good finish on them. But probably making this longer than it needs to be, so I'm gonna quit running my mouth, yank the cylinder off, and okay, we're starting with my favorite tool of choice, the cartridge roll. This is a small one. It's old, it's wore out. Well, it's not old, but it's wore out. What I'm going to do with this is we're going to go in and, you know, clean the carbon out of the corners that I guess I missed. You know, I was mainly focusing on cleaning everything off of the roof so we could get good, accurate timing numbers in our build. And you know, as I've mentioned before, it's just common sense things you should do, I guess. Again, to each their own. Not trying to sound like a know-it-all. Or maybe I am, I don't know. And you can get a mandrel to fit your Dremel for cartridge rolls, but just be careful. The 1/8" ones, if you get them bound up, they bend pretty easy and they will almost break your finger. Alright guys, let's have a look at what we're doing. She's looking pretty clean. Okay guys, so I took an air hose to that off camera. It kind of blows the speaker out on these little cameras. What we're going to do now, get you guys on frame. I've got a bigger, it's a little less wore out roll. We'll go to a new aggressive one in a little bit, and go in and do a little more cleanup work. There's really not much to do on this. There's at least a little bit of plating overhang. Very little. Once it's knocked down and we're widened, this thing will about be ready to polish. I'm going to radius the outside of this a little. I'm not going to go crazy and open it way up because for some reason there was no gasket on this saw. I don't have one, so I'm going to have to use some red RTV when I put it back together, which is perfectly fine. But yeah, I'll shut up and go to grinding a little because I know that's what you guys are here to see. Or sanding, whatever. You can hear that that's a lot more aggressive cutter. You can do your whole port job with these things. It just takes a lot longer. And I have done that on some saws. And you have a lot less risk of going in and ruining your cylinder. So if you've got a really, really aggressive, especially a single cut carbide cutter and something like this, you can wreck that cylinder in just a matter of seconds to where it's not usable. Hold your ears. These things just do an excellent job at cleanup work. I just highly recommend getting you a mandrel for whatever you're using and getting you some of these. There's some places in the corners we still need to clean up, but no big deal. I'll have to get one of the very smallest ones I have out to get that. Yeah, she's starting to look pretty good. Okay guys, we went to a little more aggressive cutter, or sandpaper roll, cartridge rolls, what they are. It's a new one. It's got the size, shape, but the way I want to radius the inside of the support on the sides. We'll be widening it just a little bit. I'm going to try to angle it maybe to where you can see if we've got enough light on it. I really don't want to have to get a big video light because it kind of blinds me, but hopefully you'll be able to see what's going on here. The professionals are going to have a field day with this, I know. Or then again, maybe they won't. Nothing scientific about it. Doesn't take much to start widening the port. I just want to go a little bit. This stuff, just, you know, a little bit goes a long way on this stuff, or at least ways, that's what I've found. Sometimes less is more. That's kind of the approach I take at it anyway. This side here is already a little smoother than the other side was. I should have shown that. The ports in this thing just were kind of uneven anyway. This side was radiused a little more than the other side. Then I'll kind of drag that back in. You can go in and make marks and measure with your caliper and get all kind of crazy with it, but you know, we're not building an all-out pipe to race saw here, or expansion chambered saw or something. We just want a fast work saw. So now what I'm going to do, hopefully that's picking up. You can see what a nice finish those leave. I'm going to make a few swipes, and that's really all it'll take with this roll across the roof of that, just to knock that little bit, and you may not even be able to see it, the lip that was in there that I was talking about. And guys, this stuff's time consuming. You know, I'm not videoing 100% of everything, and I know nobody else does, especially if they're building, you know, a decent saw anyway. Most of the fine detail work I'll go and do off camera, but I try to show a majority of what I do. Those things just leave an amazing finish, makes it really, really easy to polish afterwards. Okay, so I've already worked the upper radius here a little bit off camera. There's a few little places back in the back I didn't like. We've got it all blended in now. It wasn't anything I'd done, it just kind of the design of the port from the manufacturer. I guess we'll start with the bottom. I don't want to go crazy with it, like I said, because I'm going to have to use a little red high temp on it. When we go back together with it, I'll dig around. I may or may not have a gasket, but I highly doubt it. Pretty good looking port. Okay, alright guys, as you can see, we've kept the same shape of the port from the factory. I'll show you more on the big video camera once it's done. You can see down in there, the port looks really nice. I don't know if this thing will let me zoom while I'm videoing. I guess not. Looks pretty good. We'll wait till the very end to lay the polish on because I use that same mandrel to do the final cleanup and detail on the intake port, and sometimes on the transfers if it will fit. I don't know if it will on these or not, but I guess the next thing we're going to do is do a little bit of cleanup work to the intake and see if we can lower the floor of it a little bit without going too crazy. Yeah. By the time I get this floor of this cleaned up, it should have changed the time on a couple of degrees. You can take it, make marks on your piston, take your calipers and measure and make you a mark of how far to go with your intake floor, but after you've done so many of them, some people are going to disagree, but you know about how much to cut anyway. I've seen guys throw off on others for not using a degree wheel, but I'm just going to tell you, I don't use one all the time either. If you've done enough of a certain saw, especially if I'm doing it for myself, just making a work saw for my collection, you know where the port timing's at anyway, especially if it's an OEM cylinder. If it's aftermarket, you'd best put a degree wheel on it though. Most of your OEM stuff, the mollies are going, they're going to fall right in line about every time, I guess. There's a casting line in the center of the roof of this intake. I'm not liking it. It's kind of on my nerves. I don't leave anything rough. I kind of know who started that on YouTube, but I don't know where it came from, but it just blows my mind. I have no idea in the world why people want to go in and purposely make things rough. I don't get it. I never will. Look at a set of AFR cylinder heads for a car, a drag car, race car, whatever. Some of the nicest cylinder heads that you can buy, some of the most expensive too. I promise you that the intake port is not rough in any way. It's not polished either, but it's not rough. Some may look at some of the work I do on intakes and transfers and say, well, that looks polished. It's not. I usually leave an 80 to 120 grit finish. I've even went as far as 220 or 320. You're not going to get any fuel puddle there. These things are, in most cases, turning 10 grand plus. It's kind of hard for fuel to puddle that fast anyway. That's feeling pretty slick. See how well the camera is picking it up. And slick is fine on the intake. You just don't want a mirror finish on it. We'll go in and try to hit the floor of this intake port with a little bit of an angle on it. Just something I like to do. Some people like them flat on some saws I do, but the way the transfers feed on this, I kind of think it needs a little bit of a slope down. We'll blend it back in on the other side. And when I say slope, I'm talking so minimal you'll probably never see it through the camera. We're gonna go back in and do a little blending in there. Like I said, the slope I put on that you never see anyway. When we talk transfer angles, you know, a lot of the times you can't even see the angle through the camera anyway. That's something I'm about to get into. I'm thinking about buying a new DSLR. I have one, but it's really out of date. I used to be really big into photography. Still do enjoy it every now and then, but I'll be honest with you, YouTube's about the only social media that I fool with anymore. And I've really not had a need, but you know, I'd like to have a really nice DSLR to do some video work with. Don't get me wrong, I've got a Sony video camera, a couple of them, a couple different action cams, a couple different GoPros. We do alright, but you know, there's always room for improvement. Okay, we got our intake port, I'm pretty sure done. We'll put it on here in a little bit and check our timing, but I'm probably going to go ahead and do the rough cut on the upper transfers and get them dialed to where I think they need to be, and then clean everything up. Bolt the cylinder back on, see where our timing's at, but we kept the original shape on that. Wasn't really bad anyway. There's just some casting lines and stuff in it I didn't like. We did ever so slightly widened it, and we lowered our floor ever so slightly. Hopefully it moved it 3 or 4 degrees is what I'm shooting for. Anything between 75 and 80 degrees opening time I'll be happy with. Intake timing's not quite as important as exhaust timing and transfer timing. I'm not going to be that person that says your transfer timing's probably the most important out of the 3. And you know, if you get online and read around, there's a lot of other people that do this for a living that I'd call professionals that would more than likely agree with that. But you know, a lot of your YouTubers are gonna not. You don't see them moving the transfer timing a lot. I don't know, again, don't really know what the reason behind that is, but you're just leaving good power on the table in my opinion. What we've done is cut us a piece of cord and set it right to where we'd marked the ring. The line was so faint, I just decided to do it this way. You can go in and measure the machinist rule, or you know, most of that, like my caliper is able to do that, and cut you out a piece of an old cord and lay in there, and it'll just give you something to go by to get your transfers good and even. If you're really careful and you have an old ring, you can set it in there and do the same thing, just kind of cut to that ring. These have to be moved very little, like it's so little it's laughable. So this is a bit I normally do the cleanup with. These transfers are really rough and uneven. You'll see that every now and then in OEM stuff. We're all but to that cord. I keep hitting the cord and making it move. It is what it is. It's a big jug. The cord's mainly just a reference anyway. With this bit I'm using, you're not gonna... you have to do a lot to move a little bit with it, I guess is what I'm saying. It's a really fine diamond cut. Does a really nice job. Yeah. Alright, let's talk transfer angle. I know you guys have heard me mention it in some of the other videos. You're welcome to do your own research. If you do any research at all on two-stroke theory, you're going to find exactly what I'm about to tell you. Normally, an angle that's mainly flat and shooting straight across the piston is going to yield more torque. An angle that's pointing more toward the roof of the combustion chamber is going to yield more RPM, but what most of us shoot for, what most people shoot for, and even the factory ports are kind of this way, is most people will angle that kind of toward the intake, not the intake itself. You'll hear some people say that, even me, but toward the intake side of the combustion chamber, which is basically here where your spark plug comes out. And you know, you're going to get a little bit of both worlds there. Get a little bit of RPM, a little bit of torque. I'm going to just play around with the angle on these a little bit and kind of do my own thing on them, but I'm wanting to get a little bit of RPM out of it. We're not moving the exhaust port a little but any, and we decrease the squish. This thing does have a huge combustion chamber, so we should have picked up, you know, a little bit of compression, and we should pick up some RPM, and in the end, you know, once we get our muffler done, this thing should rip. It should be a powerhouse. If it's not, it'll really fool me and you'll probably never see this video, but I'm sure we'll do just fine. I'll probably do the other side offline or off camera just for sake of the video, and then we'll get into opening up the lowers, which actually once I get these moved, I'll probably bolt the dang thing on and check my timing and make sure I don't move it anymore. Yeah. Alright, I've got one side of the lowers and uppers probably 95% done. I'll probably do a little more fine detail. I was going to try to do it all on camera, but I kind of hooked an area and pulled a little more metal than I wanted to. So, you know, it was a little safer for me. Maybe one of these days we'll get us a jig set up on a bench or something to hold these, and we can get a little better video quality of the actual grinding. But it's turning out pretty good. There's where we're at. Here's the other side that we've not touched yet. We have done the uppers on it, and I have verified the timing's right where I wanted. Those things were rough. I've rarely seen that on an OEM cylinder. It took a long time to clean them up. Still a couple places in them I don't really care for, but you know, it'll work. It is what it is. At the end of the day, it's just an old power saw, and it'll run a lot better than it did anyway. And you know, it was a really strong saw before, and you know, I know you could cut this on out, but you know, I don't want to risk screwing up the cylinder. I don't have a lathe here, so we just kind of pulled it and blended it all down and in, and you know, it'll flow really well that way. That bit pulls material very, very fast. I'm sure you can see it. This camera's videoing in 4K. Probably won't upload in 4K, but usually what I upload when I watch it back is pretty decent quality anyway, but good tooling goes a long way. The bit we used on the other side was a little more aggressive than this, and you know, this one made it a little easier to video a little more to give you guys an idea of how to blend that in and cut it out. Next we'll go to our cartridge roll and clean it all up. Some places in here we got to work out, and this one should be good. We'll get some exhaust polishing done. We'll start with the rougher vapor. You want to go through into the port on this. It will help in deburring, but there's no burrs on this one anyway. This is my final step in polishing. You know, some of you may have seen me do stuff different in the past, but you know, we updated tools early this year, maybe late last year. I really don't remember. I think it was really early this year, but 2000 grit, hosed down with spray lubricant. I usually use some polishing compound, but who knows where it's at.
Showroom and home improvement warehouse at 4214 Greenway Drive, just 1 mile
Alright, let me get this thing cleaned up and give you guys a look at it. And you do need the deburr, chamfer, whatever you want to call it. Some people lose a lot of sleep over this. Just take your time, make sure your ring has a good transition going in and out of the port, that there's no snags, no burrs, no sharp spots, although a lot of your stock cylinders and others I've tore apart, the ports in them will about cut you, they're so sharp, and you know, most of what we get here is old as well, and got a million hours on it, so going in and changing the radius and the angle and everything with a diamond ball, in my opinion, is just not needed. I've done it in the past, but we've had pretty good luck doing what we do. Just take your time. You know, if we go in, fill the ports. I'll even go in this with a dingle ball hones, not going to hurt a thing. It'll put a light scuff back on the plating. We are reusing the same ring. I've checked it as an awesome ring gap. Should do just fine. The next thing you guys see, I guess, will be this thing cleaned up and give you a look at the final product, I guess, and bolted back on the saw. We'll start the transfers. There's a couple little places on them I don't really care for, but you know, they look pretty good. If I went in and tried to fix the places, you'll probably never see them. Probably just mess up more than it'd be worth. The polish on our exhaust port, we did widen that, not a lot. I usually don't go too crazy with that, but I have in the past. Really nice polish on that. Camera's just not giving it justice. Intake port, see if I can zoom in and get the texture on that. Again, not polished, 120 grit finish. Just a real nice finish on it, and that's what you want. You want good, smooth, high flowing ports. Some people are going to argue that. I don't really care. I know what works. You know, like I said, I've been doing this a little over 5 years. I've learned what works and what don't work, and you know, quit going in and roughing up your ports. Go in and smooth them out. You'll like the outcome a lot better. Anyway, with that said, gonna get this thing mounted back on, and I may or may not give you the final timing numbers. Alright guys, I won't do you that way. Final numbers on this. Squish is a little tighter than it was when I checked it, with just a bolt in each corner. I've run into that every now and then, but this thing's tight, like really tight, like 18 thousandths tight. You know, when I put it back on, I didn't really cinch them down tight. You know, I snugged them up, but after the bolts were torqued and glued, and you know, I don't use a lot of glue, I just paint a thin film of whatever I can get. This is Moto Seal. You just want something that's fuel resistant. I really like Durco, but kind of hard to get around here. But like 18 thou after glue, you know, that should be okay. Maybe if saw gets a lot of hours on it later on, you know, who knows, but in some places it's a little looser than that out toward the very inner edge of the squish band. But you know, you want to take the tightest number, and you know, we're around 18 thou. Should have a real nice pop to it. Final exhaust timing number, removing that little bit of plate and took it just a hair further than I thought it would. We're right on 99 degrees, which is fine. Transfers are opening at 119. That's what I was shooting for. And we hit 76 degrees on our intake, which was in the ballpark of what I was shooting for. So if all goes well, you know, this thing should be a pretty damn strong saw. We'll just have to see. I'm decided on chain setup. I'm going to try to go really aggressive with whatever it is. You know, we want this thing to rip. I think I only have one large mount Husqvarna bar here, but you know, maybe we can adapt one of these other bars we have here to fit it. I do have an adapter, put a steel bar on it, so you know, I'm kind of leaning toward that. We'll just have to see, but anyway, hopefully the next thing you guys see in this is this thing starting up and running. I know this is one long video. Alright, so I done you guys the favor of digging through my wood pile. Somehow found this. Might get a cookie or two off of it, but I've already dogged the saw in on a bunch of other crap laying here. An old tree stump and then some other smaller pieces we had, but she runs pretty good. Not too shabby for an old work saw. Saw's a freak. Alright guys, we're going to wrap this up. It's been a fun build. We may get it out and discuss it more at a later date, but the saw's daylight to dark difference. It is a freak. It's a torque monster. It's revving higher, but you know, with the squish and the port timing being where it was at, and as good as all the port work laid in, that was to be expected. But anyway, any questions, you know, put them in the comments. Feel free to shoot me an email. And on that email, I've been told that some people can't get a hold of me. Leave the and symbol out of it. Google would not let me put a symbol in there when I made that email address. But yeah, just send me an email or put it in the comments. I'll try my best to get back to you. And, you know, I was only trying to help in this video, just to share what went into this, and I hope I didn't make anyone mad or run anyone off. But anyway, you guys be safe out there and have a good one.